this program is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We're honored to continue. Welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. This program is for educational purposes only. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual sharing their testimony. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach. Face looks good. Let's go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. My name is Becca Dukes as the hostess of this program. I am excited because this is the favorite day of the week, and that is Pharmacist Fridays. So let's go ahead and open up the waiting room. Let people in. Hello, everybody. Thank you for patiently waiting in the waiting room while we get everything set up. And for those of you who are watching us on any of the platforms, and if everybody could mute themselves, that'd be fantastic. You can join us live by sending us an email, zoom@dailywithdoc.com to get on the future list. And today, join us, zoom.dailywithdoc.com. As this program is being sponsored by dailywithdoc.com, we are a resource for an even bigger community going beyond ourselves, where we are helping people around the world find a better health journey. So if somebody referred you to this program, make sure that you get back with them and say, thank you. Thank you for sharing this program with me. And if you have any questions, they're going to be your first point of contact in getting those questions answered. Now, if there's nobody to thank and you'd like to get in contact with a certified holistic health coach, you're more than welcome to do so by giving us a call at 855-949-3377. And that's for people who were not referred to this program by somebody specific, or you have not been taken, or for people that have never tried any of the products. Sorry about that. Well, let's go ahead and get started, as I am excited to be able to welcome with us today Pharmacist Ben Fuchs. He is a nationally recognized pharmacist, nutritionist, formulator, health educator. He's known for cutting through the confusion of health and wellness
with clear, practical advice. Now, with decades of experience behind the pharmacy counter and as a formulator, he's a leader in just being a fantastic person and also helping us cut through the chase, what's going on with our health. And today we're going to be talking about MBFA. Is it a real syndrome? Pharmacist Ben Fuchs, thank you so much for joining us today. MBFA, now we've talked about this before, but we're going to dedicate this day to MBFA. Now, Pharmacist Ben, tell me, what does MBFA mean?
Well, first of all, it's not MBFA. It's MBFA disease.
Oh, MBFA
A disease.
disease.
Yes. And,
Disease.
and MBFA disease is really the only disease. We have this idea in our culture of zooming in on individual parts. And we've talked about this the last few weeks now. You got a heart problem, you go to a cardiologist. You go to a skin problem, you go to a dermatologist. You got a brain problem, you go to a neurologist. You got a hormone problem, you go to an endocrinologist. You got an immune problem, you go to an immunologist. Blah, 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 blah. It doesn't work, people. It doesn't work because the body's a system. It's all connected. The heart is not separated from the adrenal glands or from the thyroid or from the intestine. So the stupidity of the medical model of focusing on the heart, divorced from the adrenal glands and the thyroid and the immune system and the digestive system, all the other parts of the body, is manifested by the utter and complete and total failure of the medical model to deal with chronic degenerative disease. But we, as human beings, in our infinite, endless stupidity, continue to go to these people, and we can't figure out why they're not taking care of us. Because the body is not a bunch of parts, it's a system. And in fairness, this idea of systems really only began to understand this idea of systems in the 1940s. It really started with information theory and with computers and networking. We start to see that there's this phenomena of entities that are made up of different parts all working together to achieve a goal. That's what a system is. It's a bunch of parts working together to achieve a goal. But we have this medical model that has not caught up with that yet. And while that's, the medical, we can fault the medical model for it, it's on us because we continue to go to these people. And then we're blown away by when they don't take care of us. It's not their fault. They're not equipped to take care of us. So what I saw when I started hearing, and I've been doing this for 40 years now, so the letters I get and the data points I have and the sample size that I'm working with is in the tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people. So I see the same thing over and over again. And it's funny because sometimes I'll hear just a couple of things from a person and I'll know exactly what they're dealing with. And it almost sounds like, sorcery, but it's not. It's just that these things are all generic. The body breaks down generically as a system. There's two major, I don't want to, just keep repeating myself because I'm sure people are just, sick of hearing the same thing over and over again. But really, it's 3 points: the digestive system, the metabolic system, and the adrenal thyroid complex. But recently, we've even truncated that to just 2 points. The digestive system and the blood sugar system, the digestive system and the blood sugar system, the digestive system and the blood sugar system. I'll keep saying it because those are the only 2 points that you need to address. But the thing is, if you think about the digestive system and the blood sugar system as soil and roots, you can understand that once the soil and the roots become polluted or dirty or toxic or dysfunctional in some fashion, it leads to dirty and toxic and dysfunctional fruits. And you can't address the fruits unless you address the soil and the root. The fruits are what I call the distorted fruits, the sick fruits, the pathological fruits, whatever you want to call it, that arise from the disturbed soil and roots, are what I call falling apart. Body just falls apart. It doesn't get the nutrients it needs. It doesn't get the oxygen it needs. and the toxicity accumulates. And that's really the only three things that go wrong with the body, is a lack of oxygen, a lack of nutrients, and toxicity. Once that happens, you get the rotten fruits. And the rotten fruits are basically what I call falling apart. The body falls apart. And then I came up with some kind of, I thought it was amusing. It's sort of amusing, but we've said it so many times now, it's lost its amusement value, and now it's just literal. MBFA is my body is falling apart, and that's how we get sick. And if we continue the same craziness of going to these individual specialists who never helped anybody except for to mask their symptoms, they do help with that, never helped anybody get better, then it's on us. It's not on them. And so what we want to learn to do is, most importantly, trust ourselves. Trust ourselves that we can figure it out. Trust ourselves that we have an ability to change our lifestyle and the sources of our chronic degenerative diseases. And trust the process. Trust God. Trust the body. Trust biology. It's really one of the things I like to do is reduce things to their simplest and their most easy to understand levels. And the simplest and most easy to understand level is this. If you're sick, wrong stuff in, right stuff not in. And to correct it, you put the right stuff in and you take the wrong stuff out. It's really that simple. Right stuff in, wrong stuff out. The medical folks, they want us to think, oh, it's genetic, and oh, it's a virus, and oh, your mother had diabetes, so you're going to have diabetes. No, it's wrong stuff in, right stuff isn't. Reverse it, right stuff in, wrong stuff isn't. So what do? Right stuff, obviously the mighty 90 essential nutrients, but it's more than that. The mighty 90 essential nutrients are the micronutrients. The micronutrients facilitate the transformation of food into energy. That's what the micro, the vitamins, minerals, amino acids, fatty acids. Their job is to facilitate the transformation of lunch into energy. And we think about it, that's pretty miraculous. How does lunch get turned into energy? How does lunch get turned into our bones? How does lunch get turned into our bodies? That's pretty amazing stuff right there. We don't have to think about it. It happens on automatic, but if you did give it a little bit of thought, you say that's a miracle, and it is a miracle. That, by the way, that process is called metabolism. Metabolism is how everything we put into our mouths gets transformed into the body and into energy. So the right stuff means the micronutrients that facilitate that metabolism, the transformation, and the macronutrients, which form the bricks of the building blocks, the solid material, the protein, the fats, and the carbohydrates. That's the right stuff, and you have to have the right proportions of everything and the right forms of everything. That's the right stuff. Macronutrients, micronutrients, and just as a quick aside, I'm not going to belabor the point, there's also mental nutrition, which is ideas. There's also emotional nutrition, which is feelings. And there's also spiritual nutrition, which is godliness. And they're just as important, or we'll say they're just as important. Spiritual nutrition, mental nutrition, and emotional nutrition. And I have to say, we sometimes marginalize that. We sometimes don't really emphasize that as much as we should. Because, we live in a world of tangibility. We can actually see food. We can actually see supplements, but we can't see love. And we can't see godliness, and we can't see good ideas. So we sometimes marginalize these, but we do it at our peril because they're very important. I'm not going to talk about those. Talk about the physical side. Just know that those are important, and I'm very aware that those are important, and you all should be aware of that as well. Were you going to say something?
Yeah. So kind of to simplify this is, if you don't think you're going to get better, you're not going to get better.
So important. And not only that, if you don't believe you can get better, willingness is, belief and willingness are so important. And I almost hesitate to say this, but I have to. There's a payoff for being sick. You get love, you get compassion. When I worked in the hospitals, I noticed that the same people keep coming back to the hospital, especially when they were on assistance, government assistance. They would keep coming back. And I noticed that people were getting a lot of love and a lot of attention when they're sick. So we have to own up to that. There's a payoff for that. Now, I'm not saying everybody has that, but that we have to own up to that there's a payoff for us being sick. And so, aside from that, willingness is very, very important. And that's one of the first things I always ask people. Do you want to get better? Are you willing to do what it takes to get better? Are you willing to do it? And then also, do you believe you can get better? Those are very important, like you said, willingness and belief. And that's along the same lines as the mental nutrition and emotional nutrition. But from a physical perspective, it's your macronutrients and your micronutrients. It's oxygen, and it's also movement. Nutriate, respirate, move, and rest. Just like we have a triangle disease, we've got a fourfold square of health. And then there's the stuff that's getting in that shouldn't be getting in. And of course, we know about that. Fast foods, fried oils, the bad foods, gluten, lectins, there's all kinds of stuff. But the point is that that's simple. And it has nothing to do with doctors. And it's not like doctors are bad people either. They're not. They're good people. The vast majority are beautiful people. There are they're health angels. They want to make the world better, but the model is wrong. It's not that it's a bad model. It's anachronistic. It's from a time gone by when we didn't understand how everything is put together. So now we do. We understand that it's networked, that the heart is connected to the intestine and the adrenal glands and the thyroid and the brain is connected to the heart and the intestine and the immune system and the adrenals, and it's all on and on and on. It's all linked together. So we have to take a bird's eye view as we raise ourselves from the level of the heart. Pretend you're like a little bug and you're in the body and you see the heart and you see all of the organs and it looks like there's a bunch of different parts. We got to get out of the system and get above it so you can see the whole connection. And then you start to see that there's links to everything. It's networked like a spider web. And when you take a bird's eye view, you'll start to see that there's certain systems that link everything together. And the main system that links everything together is the blood. All disease is cell disease, first of all. There's no gallbladder disease, heart disease, brain disease, skin disease separate from heart cells and brain cells and gallbladder cells and skin cells. They're all cellular. Why is that important? Because the cell just needs three things. When I say all disease is cell disease, this is relevant because the cell only needs three things. 1, 2, 3. There's 5,000 different prescription drugs. There's 5,000 different medical diagnoses. There's countless protocols and surgical procedures and devices, not to mention insurance companies and hospitals and all of this diversity, but really a cell, which is where the disease process is located, the nexus of disease, only needs three things. It needs food, it needs nutrition, oxygen, and it needs a clean place to do its work. That's it. So all disease is cell disease, meaning that involves nutrition, it involves oxygen, and it involves toxification, starvation, suffocation, toxification. But all cell disease is preceded by dirty blood. The blood is the connecting thread through all the organs and all the systems and all the tissues and all the cells of the body. Everything happens through the blood. When it tells us in Leviticus, the life of the flesh is in the blood, they ain't fooling. They ain't kidding around. The life of the flesh, the body, is in the blood. The blood is the sacred space. And when we think of the blood or we see the blood, we just see this red stuff. But if you zoom in with your x-ray vision into the blood, and I don't know if you've ever seen a whole blood analysis, they do these whole blood analyses, you could see the blood is a complex system. It's a tissue. It's a liquid tissue. And it's made up of proteins and minerals and fats, and it has to have just the right amount of oxygen, fluidity, and solid material, and blood cells, and pH, and heat, and there's so many parameters that have to be kept just so. And under ordinary circumstances, it's perfect. But there's a hole in the system. There's a leak. There's an opening, not a leak, but an opening into the blood at the level of the intestine because you got to get food in there. And that's where it all goes awry, is in this entrance point at the level of the intestine, the intestinal circulatory juncture, the point where the intestine meets the circulatory system. And I say the blood, but the lymph is also involved. So called the circulatory system. Once stuff gets into the blood, you got a problem because now you've disturbed this very, very tightly regulated balance of fluid and heat and pH and solid material and liquid material and fluidity and viscosity and all the different things, proteins and minerals and fats, all the different things in the blood. Now you've got a source of stuff coming in. And if that stuff is not perfect, you got a problem. And of course, today, it's not perfect. It's highly imperfect. And it's been highly imperfect at an accelerated pace beginning about 150 years ago, maybe 200 years ago, and then at a super accelerated pace over the last 50 years or 50, 40, 30 years, at a super accelerated pace to the point today where most of the stuff that gets into the blood is completely foreign, most of it. At that point, you've got stuff in the blood that doesn't belong there. Now, to compound the issue, the intestine, which is the juncture, can become inflamed. Why? Because of the wrong food. Again, it has to do wrong stuff in, right stuff not. Once the intestine becomes inflamed, not just food gets into the blood, but bacteria get into the blood. Bacterial particles get into the blood. Immune cells get into the blood. Immune molecules get into the blood. Chemicals get into the blood from the immune system. Now you've got this major emergency in the blood. Major emergency in the sacred space. Remember, the blood has to be kept just so. And now you're flooding it with stuff it doesn't know what to do with. You've completely thrown off the balance of the blood. Fortunately, the body has a system in place for protecting the cells, because once things get into the river, you can think of the blood like a river that is distributing all of its wealth to all the cells. But once that river becomes polluted, you're going to have a problem because all those pollutants are going to get into the cells. And so the body has a really very interesting system for protecting the cells from all the stuff that gets into the blood. It actually has a few systems. One of those systems is a system of coagulation, clotting, viscosity, stickiness, under conditions of duress. And that duress can mean toxicity getting into the blood, or it could be injury. The blood clots, it becomes sticky, it becomes thick, it doesn't move as effectively. When you think about it, it's a good thing. First of all, if you get injured, you don't want to bleed all over the African savannah. And secondly, if you have toxins in the blood, you don't want them distributed everywhere, right? So this system is very elegant, it's perfect. However, if this keeps happening over and over again, eventually the blood doesn't move effectively. This, folks, is every single disease. Every one of them. Every one of the 5,000 diseases involve this process. Sit with that. Everything from dementia to atherosclerosis to psoriasis and acne and autoimmune diseases to blood sugar problems. Everything involves this. Everything. You see how powerful this is? Every single disease you have involves this. Because, and why is this important? Because it means that if we can correct this problem, you can correct every disease. And no doctor on planet Earth has the tools to do it, but we do. That's why it's so important. And so once the blood becomes sticky and sludgy and toxic, and this is what happens to everybody who is experiencing chronic degenerative disease, now you really have a problem. Because the blood's delivering oxygen to the cells, now the cells don't get oxygen. The blood is delivering nutrients to the cells, now the cells don't get nutrients. The blood is detoxifying, or the circulatory system is detoxifying, now the toxicity builds up. You see the problem here? It's even worse than this. Because now the tissues aren't getting fed or aren't getting aren't getting oxygenated, they're building up toxicity, a signal sent to the brain that says, hey, the tissues aren't getting fed. The tissues aren't getting oxygen. There's poison that's being built up. What are we going to do? So you know what the brain does? It sends signals to the adrenal glands and the kidneys. Let's turn up the pressure. Turning up the pressure results in something called high blood pressure, hypertension. And our brilliant medical model will say, oh, you have essential hypertension, which is 95% of hypertension. What does that mean? Oh, it's just part of you. There's no reason. There's no cause. It's just that's how it is. It's essential. It's part of your nature. That's what it means when something's essential. It's part of your nature. But it's even worse than that, because in addition to the toxicity and the lack of nutrients and the lack of oxygen that's getting into the blood and getting into the cells, the body has a mechanism for cleaning the blood. Remember, the body is brilliant. It's been around for millions of years. It's brilliant. It has a mechanism for cleaning the blood. As the blood is circulating through the tissues, the tissues are sieving the blood like a spaghetti strainer. So the blood is flowing through the connective tissues, the fascia, and all of the fibers that are holding everything together, and the connective tissue is sieving out all of the toxins that are coming in through the intestine. Now you have all these toxins. The blood is clean, but now it's relatively clean, but now you have all this toxins inside the tissue. And then the immune system sees the tissues as being distorted, and guess what it does? It attacks the tissues because the tissues are distorted. What do we call that? Autoimmune disease. And our geniuses in the medical model will say, there's just no known cause for your autoimmune disease. Your mother had it, so you'll probably have it. Your father had it, it's in your genes, so you're going to have it. And there's nothing we can do. That's just how it is. There's no cause for it. So we're just going to give you this drug, and it's going to shut down your immune system. You're going to be on it the rest of your life. But it's even worse than that. Because once you have this inflammatory condition in the gut, in the intestine, that's causing all this stuff to get into the bloodstream, now you're not going to absorb your nutrients. You're not going to absorb your vitamins. You're not going to absorb your minerals. You're not going to absorb your amino acids. You're not going to absorb your fatty acids. You're not going to be able to break down your protein. So proteins are going to sit in the intestine. They're going to putrefy. That's going to make the problem even worse. This is what disease is, people. And none of it should involve a doctor, because there's nothing they can do about it. There's nothing they can do about it. There's no drug that can fix this condition. There's no drug that can fix this condition, because it's based in stuff that's getting into the system that shouldn't be getting into the system. There's no drug that can fix cellular starvation. There's no drug that can fix cellular toxification. There's no drug that can oxygenate the body. There's nothing they can do. And we still go to the doctor. And we still get our prescription drugs. And 80% of Americans over the age of 65 are on 5 or more prescription drugs. And 60 or 70% of Americans have been on at least one prescription drug for the last 30 days. And 40 or 50% of Americans over the age of 45 have at least 2 or more chronic degenerative diseases. And we have more doctors than ever, more drugs and more hospitals and more protocols and more insurance companies and more government health care and more vaccines and more of everything. The problem is in our lifestyle and what we're doing. And it doesn't matter what the name of the disease is. It doesn't matter what the flavor is. It matters that stuff is getting into the blood that shouldn't, and we can control all of that. Now, once the body starts breaking down, because of all this stuff that's happening, leaky, sticky, dirty blood, no oxygen, no nutrition, no detoxification at the level of cells, elevated blood pressure, sugaring of the blood, sugaring of the tissues from too much sugar, malabsorption at the level of the intestine and perhaps the gallbladder and the liver, everything starts to fall apart. And it doesn't just fall apart one at a time. The whole system falls apart. That's called my body is falling apart disease. And that's the major health crisis that we have. And it's all caused by these 2 major points of toxicity. And basically, you can sum it up as wrong stuff getting in, right stuff isn't. You want to reverse a disease. And by the way, this is not about cure. I know you say at the beginning, we're not here to cure anything. There's no cures. This is reversal. You know, I noticed you didn't say anything about reversal, Becca, because this is reversal. This is reversal. Nobody can deny reversal. And by the way, I hate that I have to talk to people who already like me or who already believe me or already on board with these ideas. I want your doctor to come on this call so he can hear, and then you can listen to his inability to falsify anything I'm saying. This is unfalsifiable. There's no holes in anything I just said, and there's no real science in anything I just said. It's just logical. It's just logic. So bring your if you have an autoimmune disease and you're seeing a neurologist, bring them on the call and let's talk to them. If you have dementia or you have a skin problem or whatever it is, bring your doctor on the call and let's talk to him. Let's see what he says, because you guys already believe me, but we need to be spreading this message to people who don't know, who people don't believe, because there's no holes in it. You can't deny any of this. Not one single word of what I said is deniable or falsifiable. So anybody out there who's got a health challenge, who's been seeing a physician, or even worse, who the physician says, don't pay any attention, it has nothing to do with nutrition, it has nothing to do with your diet, bring them on the call. And I will personally talk to him while everybody's listening. I would love to be able to do that. And if you have a healthcare professional, by the way, who's interested in using longevity supplements, I'll talk to them as well. Because this is just pure logic. Everything I said is pure logic. If you can understand plumbing, you can understand your body. Because it's really what it is. It's plumbing, it's fluid dynamics or hemodynamics. And that's my body is falling apart disease. And I know we're going to get questions, because we always do, about my glaucoma, or my husband has wet macular degeneration, or my osteoporosis. And I'll just say the same thing I'm going to say, what I've just said, but at least you'll see that now that I've introduced it for half an hour, you'll see how the whole thing is put together. Does that help?
That helps. Now, Phyllis made a comment about, why doctors aren't coming on and talking to you. Yeah. She says it's they don't have the guts to come on.
Well, I maybe I don't know. I'm not going to go with that, but maybe that's true. It's kind of embarrassing when you've been seeing somebody for years and years and years. You're not helping them with their MS, but you still got to see them every 6 months. And I can see that. Perhaps that's true. But if you have a brave enough doctor out there, anybody who's listening to this call, if you have a brave enough doctor, please bring him on the call or her on the call so we can talk about this. Because it's, we're preaching to the choir here. I want to preach to new people who don't believe this or are skeptical. And I like skepticism. Skepticism is good.
Well, trust yet verify. Penny is watching out on one of the platforms, and she says, I'm convinced. How do I get clean blood?
How do I get clean blood? Well, first of all, to sum it up, like we said at the beginning, dirty blood is wrong stuff in, right stuff not. So clean blood is right stuff in, wrong stuff not. Okay, that's a little simplistic, because once you got dirty blood, what do? Okay, well, what I just said, right stuff in, wrong stuff out, that kind of thing, that's for progressing. That's moving forward. But once you got the dirty blood, there's a couple things you could do. Number one, chelation. Chelation is a magnetic reaction between dirt and something else, a nutritional supplement. Chelating substances can clean the blood. Vitamin C is a tremendous chelating substance. N-acetylcysteine is a chelating substance. Selenium is a chelating substance. Sulfur is a chelating substance. All of these substances will magnetically pull toxins out of the blood. The fucoid Z is a chelating substance, and the fucoid Z is also a blood thinner. And that's another strategy, is to liquefy the blood, to support the liquefaction, or the fluidity, we'll say, of the blood. And so chelation is great, and I would be using the de-stress, the CFX, the Ultimate Selenium, the MSM, what's the Ultimate MSM. One of the all-time great chelating agents and blood purifying agents is something we never talk about as a chelating substance and as a blood purifying substance. You know what it is? It's 3 words.
Plant-derived minerals?
Bingo.
Yay.
Bingo.
Got it.
Plant-derived minerals are blood cleansing. Plant-derived minerals support the movement of the fluid of the blood. And the plant-derived minerals come in 2 varieties that we never even talk about. We always talk about colloidal minerals. But do you know the plant-derived minerals are also ionic minerals? They're also minerals that reestablish the electrical milieu of the fluid system. And they're also maybe nature's best antioxidants, and they actually deliver oxygen. They're one of the few, in fact, maybe the only molecules in nature that protect against oxygen and deliver oxygen at the same time, both at the same time. So the plant-derived minerals are incredibly important detoxifiers. They're also important for improving fluidity and reestablishing the electrical milieu of the blood. And then Fucoid Z is not only a chelating agent, but also supports fluidity. Glucogel caps also support the fluidity of the blood. The ultimate EFAs also support the fluidity of the blood. Oxygen, breathing, also supports the fluidity of the blood. Liquids, water, also supports the fluidity of the blood. So between supporting the fluidity of the blood with supplements and oxygen and movement, I forgot to mention that, and then also fluids, also chelating the blood with chelating agents like the CFX and the MSM and the ultimate selenium. Sugar is a major blood toxin. So sugar has to be avoided as best as you can. Now, there's brain reasons why we eat sugar, and I'm not I'm not an angel here either. I'm not blaming anybody. I eat sugar too, and I have sugar cravings also. So you just got to marshal those. And by the way, if you're sick, this is all that we're talking about here. These are strategies to reverse disease. If you don't care about reversing disease, or you don't care about reversing it, you only want to reverse a little, you don't want to go a lot, then you don't have to worry about this stuff. This is only for people who want to reverse their illness without going to the doctor, or who understand that there's nothing the doctor can do. So if you have psoriasis, I don't know if you know what psoriasis is, right? You get these lesions on your skin. This is a strategy to never have psoriasis again. If you have heart disease, if you have Alzheimer's, if you have multiple sclerosis, if you have anything, these are strategies to never have heart disease, multiple sclerosis, dementia, movement disorders ever again. If you don't have these and you want to eat sugar and you don't want to supplement, that's different. But if you have a health challenge, or you have a loved one who has a health challenge, these all represent strategies for reversing, not curing, reversing the health challenges without medical intervention. That's what this is about. So you don't want to necessarily feel guilty about it. And that's another very important point, by the way. Let me just say this real quick. There's a guilt element to food. And I'm not ripping on anybody about food. And you don't want to be guilty about it. And if you're helping somebody or taking care of somebody, you want to be careful about talking to them about food, because nobody really wants to hear you ragging on them or nagging on them about their French fries or their pizza. But if they have arthritis and they're in agonizing pain, or they have multiple sclerosis and they're about to be put in a wheelchair, or they have psoriasis and they have these awful plaques and they're embarrassed to wear shorts or a t-shirt, these represent strategies so they never have to have psoriasis again, or multiple sclerosis again, or whatever the health challenge is. They don't have to have it again. If you don't have any of these and you want to eat pizza and you want to eat sugar and all that other stuff, fine, go ahead. But if you have a health challenge and you want to end it or reverse it, that's what this is about. So don't rip on anybody about the food or foods. I'm not ripping on anybody about foods. Foods is a very sensitive subject. This was about power and control and leverage.
Now, in the past, we've talked about cortisol.
Yes.
Now, when we are hard on ourselves about the food that we eat, does that play into the
Of course it does.
elevated cortisol?
Of course it does. Cortisol, stress hormone, first of all, cortisol is a very important hormone. It gets your butt out of bed in the morning. If you ever woken up at 5 in the morning when the sun starts to come up, that's cortisol that got you out of bed. So cortisol is a very important hormone. It helps helps you deal with stress in your life, has anti-inflammatory properties. It's very important. The problem is in cortisol, it's chronically elevated cortisol in response to chronic stress. But here's the thing about stress. When we hear stress, almost everybody hears psychological stress, which is definitely a factor, because our body doesn't know the difference between what's psychological and physiological. To your body, a credit card bill is just as bad as a lion chasing you down the street or on the African savannah. They're all linked together. However, what we want to recognize with cortisol is that cortisol is an anti-inflammatory hormone. So if you have inflammation, I'll talk about that here in a second. If you have inflammation, your cortisol is going to be high. And you may think that, oh, I'm relaxed and I don't have any mental problems or psychological problems, but you might have some inflammation. And so cortisol is chronically being secreted as an anti-inflammatory. So let's talk about this word inflammation, because just like the blood is a common denominator to all diseases, so is inflammation. And when I talk about blood toxicity and dirty blood, what I'm really talking about is inflamed blood. Dirty blood is a synonym for inflamed blood. So what is inflamed? What is inflammation? We hear this word all the time, and it's for good reason, because all disease is inflammatory, just like all disease is cell disease, all cell disease preceded by dirty blood, all disease is also inflammatory, which is a really, really, really interesting metaphor. I'll tell you why here in a second. But you see how we're reducing all the 5,000 different diseases into cells, into blood, and into inflammation. These are the common denominators to every single disease. So now we know about the blood. We know we can clean the blood. Now we know about cells. Now we know it's important to feed the cells and to breathe the cells or oxygenate the cells and to detoxify the cells. Then there's the third element. There's the inflammation. We hear it all the time, but what is inflammation? First of all, flame is the main word or the root word of inflammation for good reason, because inflammation is a fire. In fact, the 4 cardinal signs of inflammation, dolor, calor, rubor, and tumor. That's Latin for dolor, pain, calor, heat, rubor, redness, and tumor, growth. That's the 4 cardinal signs of inflammation: pain, heat, redness, and growth. Dolor, calor, rubor, and tumor. But what is inflammation really? Those are the cardinal signs of it, but what is it? Inflammation, first of all, while it's associated with all chronic degenerative diseases, is your best friend. As a human being, as a living entity, you cannot survive without inflammation, because inflammation is the way the body protects itself. Inflammation is a protective response. It's a beaver's dam. When you get punched in the eye, you get a black eye, you get inflammation. Everybody knows that. You get hit in the head, you get a big knot on your noggin, that's inflammation. Everybody knows that. You break your leg or sprain your ankle, you get inflammation in your ankle or in your leg. Everybody knows that. That's clear. What is that inflammation? Let's take your eye, for example. You get punched in the eye, you get broken tissue, broken blood vessels. The body will protect the eye by putting a cushion around it. A cushion made of fibers and fluids, and these kind of fibers and fluids form a beaver's dam to protect the eye so that it can heal. We all know that. But here's where inflammation becomes especially problematic when it comes to chronic degenerative disease. Inflammation in your eye is macro inflammation, macroscopic inflammation. We could see that. Another kind of inflammation, however, we don't see. It's invisible, and that's micro inflammation. Macro inflammation you could see is big. Micro inflammation is small. You can't see it. It's invisible. And just like you have a black eye, you get injured in your eye or your leg or your arm or wherever it is, your head, you can have injuries in the very tiny, tiny levels of the body, the cells. Now, real quick digression, the cell is so small you can't see it. It's invisible. But within that cell, within that invisible cell, you've got millions of working parts that are secreting hundreds, if not thousands, of different chemicals per second. And the system is constantly shifting and rearranging and breaking down and building up and incinerating and synthesizing, doing all kinds of stuff inside this microscopic space. But every once in a while, this microscopic space will get injured. Something will happen. Either a toxin will be involved, or there'll be some kind of mechanical injury, and the cell will die. When a cell dies, it starts to spew out its contents, and the contents of a cell are acid and enzymes, and they can eat and they can dissolve and eat things, and they're dangerous. So the body has a way of protecting itself from the spewing contents of the dead cell. And this protective device is exactly the same as the protective device that happens when you get punched in the eye. Except instead of macroscopic, it's microscopic. Instead of macro inflammation, it's microinflammation. It's microscopic threads and microscopic fluids that surround that cell to keep that cell from spewing out its contents and poisoning the rest of the system. And that's great when it happens once in a while. However, in our culture, we are constantly putting enemies, toxins, poisons, damaging substances into the blood through the leaky gut. So eventually, lots of cells start to die, and the body has to protect lots of places. And you get lots of places where there's these inflammatory fibers and inflammatory fluids that you can't see, but they're there, but you can't see them. You don't even notice them because you have 100 trillion cells. So if you have 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 or even 1,000,000,000 cells that have little microscopic fibers and goo to surround them to protect them from dying, you don't even notice that. However, as time accrues and as more cell damage accrues and as more inflammatory fibers start to build up, you get these pockets of walled off material that no oxygen can get through and no nutrients can get through and no toxicity can leave, which of course leads to more cell death, which leads to more inflammatory pockets, which leads to more cell death and more inflammatory pockets. And this condition, this situation continues from birth until one day, and it starts at birth and sometimes even in utero, in the womb, but for most of us it starts at birth until one day we're 50 years old and we're sitting there watching TV and all of a sudden, what was that? Or all of a sudden I'm shaking. What's going on? All of a sudden I'm dizzy. I got vertigo. What's happening? And then you call Daily with Doc or Pharmacist Ben or Dr. Glidden or Rebecca or whoever, and you say, I was just sitting at home minding my own business and I wasn't doing anything. I was just watching TV and I got Parkinson's disease and I was just fine. I had nothing to do with it. Or even better, I got a heart attack. Like my heart attacked me. I'm an innocent bystander in all of this and my heart's attacking me. How dare my heart attack me or my gallbladder attack me or whatever it is. We get attacked by our body. We're innocent here because we don't see this whole inflammatory system building up. And again, this is in our control because it's all about the stuff that's getting into the system, the good stuff not and the bad stuff in, or the bad stuff is. The good stuff isn't getting in and the bad stuff is. That's why it all boils down to good stuff, bad stuff. Good stuff getting in, bad stuff not getting in, or vice versa. If you're sick, good stuff not getting in, bad stuff is getting in. Stop doing the bad stuff, put in the good stuff. Don't blame your mother. Don't blame your grandmother, your family history. Don't blame the virus that's out in the air, or the bacteria, the germ that's out in the air. It's us. We have the power. To take responsibility is not to blame, it's to take power. This is all about taking our power back. This is ultimately a message of empowerment to free us from other people telling us what to do, from other authorities telling us that we have to take this prescription drug or have this surgical procedure done or keep coming back to have our checkup to make sure that we're okay. That's what this is about. This is a motivational message. This is an empowerment message. This is a message that we can all incorporate into our lives from the comfort of our own bathrooms, living rooms, and kitchens. And that's why I love doing this so much.
Well, Pharmacist Ben, I was kind of stuck in that medical matrix while I kept going from one specialist to another specialist to another specialist, trying to figure out what was wrong with me. Their tests showed that there was pretty much nothing wrong.
There's nothing
except
wrong.
for my insulin resistance was elevated.
Okay.
But they pushed me off to pain management.
Did they give you an antidepressant because you're obviously crazy?
Well, yeah, I had those too. Who's to say that I'm not? But you know what? I'm a happy crazy and I'm thriving. So that's all that matters.
Right, but how do you like when you go in, you tell the doctor you have terrible pain and say, there's nothing wrong with you. You need some Prozac. Right? There's nothing wrong. We did the tests. The tests say you're fine. And you're like, doctor, I'm not fine. I feel like crap. My fingernails are brittle. My hair's falling out. Oh, no, you're fine. It says right in the test. Right here. Can't you see? On the test. You are fine. Right? You go to, like I said, you go to a restaurant, eat the hamburger, you take a bite of the hamburger, you spit out. That's the worst hamburger I ever said. Waiter, that's the worst hamburger I ever said. The waiter says, what are you talking about? Look at the menu.
Right, it's the best
hamburger, voted best hamburger in America. Right here. It says, what are you, crazy? It says it right here on the test. Right here. You're nuts. Go get some Prozac because you're obviously crazy.
Yeah, well, I'm happy about being this crazy, Pharmacist Ben,
All right.
because it took that bad situation for me to say, you know what, something's just not right. There's got to be something more. I heard Dr. Wallach on the radio, got on his program, and I was looking at the date. That's almost 10 years ago.
Is that right? When did I meet you? Was it 10
March will
years
be
ago?
10 years ago.
I met you 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Can you believe it?
No, I can't believe it. I was a young
Crazy.
man. What happened to me?
I feel younger than then, so I feel
All
great.
right.
This
All
whole
right.
getting
See if we
old,
can
I'm
squeeze a
okay with it.
question in here.
Let's get a couple questions. Yes, sir. And AJ, your hand was up first.
All right, Pharmacist Ben, thank you
Yes.
for all of that. Thanks for all you do. We have a question from Gordy. I have a condition called new daily persistent headache. Had it since 2012.
New, wait a minute, new, like NEW, new?
Yep, new daily persistent headache. I've
Okay.
tried every headache medicine out there, every type of test. Most people that have new daily persistent headache are in the same situation as me. All the scan and blood work are negative, unremarkable. The headache is the migraine family, but not truly a migraine. Closest way to describe the pain is if you've gone boating to the beach, driving, forgot your sunglasses, that type of ache behind your eyes. It gets worse when the barometer drops. I had a lumbar puncture to check for pressure problem. Any ideas of treatment?
Yes. Yes. First of all, I hadn't heard of this. This is a new one on me. New daily persistent headache. You get headaches, okay? That sounds like
A
something.
new one.
A new one. Okay. So here's the thing. A couple things. First of all, headaches are vascular in nature. Headaches, the cause of headaches involves blood vessels. Blood vessels opening, blood vessels closing inappropriately. And that's migraines, new whatever, any kind of headache involves vascularity. Once again, we come right back to the blood. All disease is cell disease. All cell disease is preceded by dirty blood. So once again, you've got the blood. So headaches need to be regarded as a blood issue. Now, I could tell you in a blanket sense of what to do, but remember Bob Ross, right? Our Bob Ross analogy. You got a canvas in the middle of a white canvas, and you got a dot in the middle. What's that dot? It's just a dot. It's nothing. I can't tell you what it is. Now I can tell you if you have new vascular or new, what did you call it? New persistent daily headache. Okay, so now you got NPDH, a whole nother disease acronym thing. Sounds like something a drug company made up to sell a drug, by the way, because that's usually what happens.
I wonder what the code is for that one.
Yeah, right. So new persistent daily headache or whatever it is, it's a blood issue and you fix the blood and that's how you take care of it. And one of the clues you can use is you can look for spikes, like when the headaches get worse. Flare-ups are always your best friend because flare-ups give you real-time information. If something is steady, it's much harder to figure out what's going on. But if it spikes, you can say, oh, what did I do right before it spiked? What happened in my life right before it spiked? And usually involves some kind of food, but it could be other things too. So spikes and flare-ups are your best friend. Look for flare-ups and spikes. We know it's vascular because all headaches are vascular in nature. Even though they're a special category of vascular headaches, they're all vascular. Whether it's migraine or new whatever or fever or whatever it is, it all involves the blood, dirty blood. So you fix the blood, that's first of all. But remember Bob Ross, we got a white canvas in the middle. We've got new daily persistent headache dot in the middle. That doesn't help us. We need comorbidities. That is, we need to find other health challenges. And sometimes when I'm asking people about other health challenges, they'll say, no, I don't have anything else. And then as I'm talking, things will start to come out because we don't remember these things. When things happen over and over again, they go under the radar. We don't notice them. So it's very important to collect the dots so you can connect the dots. You got to collect the dots before you can connect the dots. And that's what we're trying to do here. If you have one dot, that doesn't help us. You got to have multiple points, multiple data points, sample points. With Bob Ross, he puts a dot in the middle of the pain. That's nothing. But he puts another dot. Now you can start to see something sort of emerging. You put a third dot, and oh my God, there's a river. You put a fourth dot, and there's a mountain. You put a fifth dot, and there's a landscape. You put a sixth dot, and there's a bird. And picture starts to emerge as you have dots. So you gotta look for dots. So for this gentleman, if he's coming to me, I'm saying number one, all headaches are vascular. Clean the blood. Look for flare-ups. More than likely, there's going to be food that's involved. Look for specific foods that trigger, associate them with flare-ups, and eliminate the foods. And that's always the first thing you want to do is clean the blood. And that involves foods, unless you're injecting. Now, if you're injecting, that's different. And we know that people who inject will get many of the same health challenges that people who have leaky gut do. And the next thing you want to do is you want to start using vascular nutrients. Now, one of the things that happens when the blood becomes dirty is the wall of the blood, it's called the endothelium, the wall of the blood, or the wall of the blood vessels, I should say, the endothelium of the blood vessels starts to break down. Toxicity in the blood leads to breakdown of the endothelia or the endothelial cells, and that breakdown leads to the secretion of various factors and of band-aids made of calcium and cholesterol. And this whole deterioration of the endothelia contributes to the dirty blood. So what you want to do is you want to start to clean the blood. Obviously, if you're injecting, that has to be eliminated, but for most people, they're not doing it. So foods. Look for spikes, start to eliminate foods, and clean the blood with all the chelating agents we talked about, and then fluidizing the blood as well. And don't underestimate the importance of oxygen for fluidizing the blood. So slow, deep breathing techniques. And then secondly, for this gentleman, look for comorbidities, because they represent not only data points that will help you see a picture of what's happening inside the body, but they also represent places that you can work to reduce the problem. So if you say, oh yeah, I get heartburn, now we know we can start to work on dysbiosis or on stomach acid. You say, oh yeah, I got some arthritis. Now we know we can work on essential fatty acids, and we can work on eliminating food allergens. If you start to get multiple symptoms, or what we say comorbidities, you can not only see a picture start to emerge, so you can figure out what's going on in the body, but you also have multiple approaches, avenues of approach, places where you can work to resolve the problems. So look for comorbidities. In lieu of comorbidities, vascular headaches are going to always involve the blood, like all disease involves the blood, and work on cleaning the blood and fluidizing the blood, starting with the intestine, unless you're injecting, in which case you got to be careful about that as well.
Thank you, Pharmacist Ben. Would water that's in the vortex, electrified water, is that going to help?
Absolutely. Remember, and AJ, I know you know this, and you're one of the few people I've ever heard that knew this. The blood is moving through the blood vessels in a vortex. It doesn't move this way, it moves this way. And that's one of the ways it propels. So anything you can do to vorticize your liquid is going to improve the vortical quality of the blood, which is why you want to blend your liquid, your Beyond Tangy Tangerine, or mix your Beyond Tangy Tangerine in a blender, create a vortex. Yes, vortices are very important. Breathing will create vortices as well. Oxygenation improves the formation of vortexes in the blood.
Thanks, sir.
All right. And Phyllis, last question. Unmute. Phyllis, unmute.
Thank
Phyllis.
you.
Phyllis, you look
Hello.
exceptionally beautiful today, I have to tell you.
Oh, thank you so much. You as well.
Thank you.
Peter has a question. How does
Yes.
Parkinson's disease relate to this MBFA disease?
MBFA disease. Parkinson's disease, if you go to a neurologist, you have Parkinson's disease, they'll tell you that a part of your brain is being eaten away. And that part of the brain is the part of the brain that makes the chemical dopamine. Dopamine is your motivation chemical. And when I say motivation, I don't mean just motivation to like do your taxes, but motivation just to pick up your phone, motivation to pick up a glass of water, motivation to open a doorknob, motivation to take a step forward. These all involve motivation. It takes motivation to move your body, to do things. And dopamine is involved in opening doors and holding up a glass of water and picking up your phone and taking a step forward. Without dopamine, every time you go to reach for a phone or the doorknob, you're going to go like this. You're not going to be able to reach the doorknob. And that's what happens with Parkinson's. They shake. That shaking is an inability to make movements because of a lack of dopamine, which is following a destruction in the part of the brain, which is technically called the substantia nigra. The substantia nigra is Latin for the black substance, and this substantia nigra is a black area in the brain that makes dopamine. So the question then becomes is what's going on? Well, what's going on is that section of the brain that makes dopamine is inflamed. It's breaking down. It's toxic. What is it that causes tissue to break down? Remember, it's not tissue, it's cells. What is it that causes the cells of the substantia nigra to break down? Starvation, suffocation, and toxification. What is it that leads to starvation, suffocation, and toxification? All disease is cell disease. All cell disease is preceded by dirty blood. Parkinson's disease is the end result of dirty blood that is causing starvation, suffocation, and toxification of the cells of the substantia nigra, leading to a drop in dopamine. So once again, clean the blood. Make sure you're using nutrients, the mighty 90 essential nutrients. Make sure you're breathing correctly, using oxygenation techniques, and of course eliminating toxicity, which for the most part comes in through the gut. Although you can get damage in Parkinson's disease, you can get mechanical damage. We're talking about biochemical damage, but you can get trauma, and that can lead to damage. And we know that boxers will get Parkinson's disease. Muhammad Ali famously had Parkinson's disease. Now, I don't know what the internal milieu of his body was, whether he was dealing with starvation, suffocation, toxification. Chances are he was, but just being punched in the head will do it a lot. There's a condition that football players get called chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, and that can happen as well. So mechanical damage can do it too, but for most people, they're not fighting a heavyweight fight, so they're not, or they're not playing football. For most people, it's going to be biochemical, clean the blood. Interestingly, I've been talking about, and by the way, I help a lot of people with Parkinson's disease. There's one guy I've been working with in Alabama, and he went to all the doctors, did all the meds, nothing helped. Put him on the dietary, put on the mighty 90 essential nutrients, all the dietary, the food diary, and all the dietary changes, and he noticed, oh my God, every time I have cereal, I start shaking, and oh my God, every time I have these certain foods, I get the symptoms. And he thinks I'm a miracle worker. I'm not a miracle worker. It's just how it happens. It's the way the body works. Now, if you go online and look up Parkinson's, if I said this 20 years ago, they'd say Ben was crazy. Ben is a crack. He's a crackpot, hippy dippy from Boulder. Now, if you go on and look at Parkinson's disease, they'll say fecal transplants, intestinal comorbidity, leaky gut. It's right online. Look it up. Probiotics, dysbiosis. Don't wait for the medical model to sanctify these ideas. This is just logic. So Parkinson's disease is just another manifestation of dirty blood. Dirty blood is itself a manifestation of wrong stuff in, right stuff not in. Get rid of the bad stuff, put in the good stuff.
You also mentioned something earlier we don't always talk about, but that's a willingness to try something different,
Yes.
to make a decision, to
Yes.
do something and try different things and new
Yes.
things.
For the life of me, I can't figure out why people don't have that when they're sick, but they don't. And that's why I think, you got to be really careful about blaming the victim, about blaming people for their own health challenge. But, I don't know why people aren't willing to if I had a health challenge, I'd be doing whatever it took. And everybody on this call is like that, but some people aren't, especially older people. I talk to a lot of young folks who say, my mom just doesn't want to do it. My mom just doesn't believe me. She goes to the doctor. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So if you keep going to the doctor and he's not doing anything for you, you're insane.
Giving up their power.
And that really is what it's all about. It's about taking your power back. And we focus on nutrition, but the meta message here is empowerment and motivation.
Love it. Great thing to end on.
Thank you, Phyllis. And thank you,
Yes.
everybody.
And Phyllis, stay up. And if I could get the other co-hosts up as well. I know, AJ, you raised your hand for just a moment. Did you have something to add to that?
Well, it's just so to recap what Pharmacist Ben said, if you've got Parkinson's, find someone with good fecal and get a transplant.
That's right. Fecal transplant. You love that, right? Right, AJ? You can actually get fecal pills. I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding. Fecal pills.
That's horrible.
I guess, yeah, that's what they mean when they say eat. Well, never mind.
Okay. Yeah, let's not go to that place where we're going to eat. We are going to make sure, folks, that if you're looking for, okay, what's the good stuff that's supposed to get in? What's the bad stuff?
Mighty 90 essential nutrients.
Get the 90 essential nutrients. Get back with the person that shared this program with you. If you're looking for some food recommendations, you can go to the website dailywithdoc.com, where we do have a good foods, bad foods list put together by Dr. Joel Wallach. And folks, we had some great questions today. Pharmacist Ben,
Yes.
you do such a great job explaining things, and I love the empower part
Yes. Empowerment.
and the common sense, which, not everybody has that. But why make it more difficult than it has to be? Chasing it with more and more chemicals that's then creating more and more toxins in the body. And the body, all just for some reason, keeps getting worse and worse. You give the body what it needs, the body knows what to do with it and puts it to work within the body so the body can then function the way it was designed to function, folks. I felt it. Many of the people on the screen have felt the difference. And Pharmacist Ben, you have one more thing to say?
I do? No, I want to say goodbye.
Oh, you want to say goodbye?
See you on Monday, AJ.
9 p.m.
AJ, Monday.
Eastern.
Right bites.
9 p.m.
I'm going to go. Bye.
All right. We're hoping that it's going to be 9 p.m. Eastern, right? Pharmacist Ben? Okay. We'll get him nailed down on that time, folks. But Daily with Doc is here Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from 12 to 1 p.m. Pacific, 1 to 2 Mountain, 2 to 3 Central, 3 to 4 Eastern, 9 to 10 in South Africa and England. And folks, Pharmacist Ben Bites with AJ. You can make sure that you go to our website, dailywithdoc.com, sign up for our email list so that you get those notifications of when they are going to be live with the time and the Zoom link. Again, that's dailywithdoc.com. Sign up for the email list. And folks, if you want to continue to be part of our live Zoom audience, email us, let us know, zoom@dailywithdoc.com. Folks, I just wanted to do a quick shout out to the individuals that we have here on the screen who are part of an amazing team, which many hands make light work. Not only are we working together, but we are family. We have Phyllis, who is just absolutely fantastic. She's been with Dr. Wallach the longest of any of us here on the screen. Her and her husband were responsible for getting Dr. Wallach on the radio program that I actually heard that has changed my life. So I have a special bit of gratitude for Phyllis and her husband, Andy. Thank you, Phyllis. And we also have Marilyn. Marilyn is taking notes, putting it in the chat so that if you can't take notes fast enough or you can't write fast enough, she's put them into the chat, but that's only available if you're here live with us in the Zoom. So you've already heard what to do on that one. Thank you, Albert, joining us from South Africa, letting people in as our gatekeeper. Thank you, Albert. Thank you, Rod, for being out on the different platforms and bringing up some chatter. Thank you so much, Rod, for doing that. And AJ, thank you for bringing in questions. Thank you for pushing to have these accounts on these different platforms so we can meet people where they're at. Folks, my name is Becca Dukes. As a certified naturopathic practitioner, certified holistic health coach, director of student services for the Institute of Holistic Health, it has been put on my heart that I'm in the right place doing what I'm supposed to do, and that's share the message that helped me love life again. We encourage you to give us a try as U-turns are available in this thing called health. So if you want a better health journey, get back with the person that shared this program with you. And if there is no one to thank, 855-949-3377. AJ?
Folks, YouTube has banned us for some things that Dr. Wallach has said on shows in the past. And he's speaking from the heart. But some things they don't want to hear. So please go to stream.dailywithdoc.com and subscribe and hit the notifications, because if you want to tell your friends and share some of this health freedom information That's the way we got to do it. So go to stream.dailywithdoc.com, subscribe. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, AJ, as he is staying on top of all of the things going on in the background. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend, folks. And hey, let's all thrive together instead of just barely survive. Until next time, bye for now.
Welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. This program is for educational purposes only. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual sharing their testimony. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options.